Welcome to the Strategy IQ Leadership Laboratory here at CEOIQ. Boy, we use a lot of IQs, don't we? That's because we got a lot of smart people out here. Let's get you oriented to what we mean by Strategy IQ, and more importantly, this whole term strategic thinking. You may use a strategic planning process at your company. In fact, I've used strategic planning as the benchmark term for years in organizations that I've run, from small entrepreneurial startups to $250 million divisions of publicly held companies. So I'm real familiar with the notion of strategic planning. Your process might look a whole lot like this if you've done strategic planning with your team in the past. You get everybody together and you book a room somewhere at an off-site location. You may even go away for an overnight and spend a couple of days together at a nice location where you can spend some time doing strategic planning. You spend a lot of time working together, getting stuff down on paper, and coming up with the list. You know what I mean. It's the list of 25 to 40 things that you're going to get done this next year that'll really move the meter for your organization, that'll help you really move things forward. You come out of that strategic planning retreat. Oh, by the way, that's one of the interesting things to me. We call those retreats. And I've always been curious why we call them retreats when we're spending 2 days talking about looking forward. We're talking about where we're going out there, and yet we're in retreat mode. Just kind of an interesting anomaly in the strategic planning process. But when you're done with your retreat, you get your list together. You maybe even create a 3-ring binder that's your strategic plan. I spent a lot of time in property casualty insurance companies, and we could create 3-inch 3-ring binders full of data, statistics, actuarial projections, and all those kinds of things. And then everybody heads back to the office and life starts happening again. What do I mean about life happening? Well, let's see. You lose a key customer. Oh, you get that big contract that you had bid on and you weren't sure was going to come through. A key employee quits. Or you're growing and you've got 2 more people to inboard real quickly. You're running out of office space and you've got to go get a new lease negotiated. Or the servers are just absolutely at capacity and they've got to be replaced. All those day-to-day things that happen is what I mean when I say life happens. And that's what happens when you get back from your strategic planning retreat. Life happens, and the strategic planning book goes up on the top shelf, and that's where it stays. We call that a spots exercise. Strategic plan on top shelf, because that's where it sits, gathering dust, until you're ready to do the next retreat. Here's a statistic for you to think about. The typical American company leadership team spends less than 1 hour per month in strategic territory. Less than an hour per month. That's not very much time. It's not much time to really focus on where you want the business to go, the big picture of what we're doing, of what kinds of things we ought to be tackling. So when we talk about strategic thinking, we mean that we want you to engage with your leadership team on a regular monthly basis, not just a once-a-year workshop or retreat about strategy, but a regular monthly conversation that we call strategic thinking. And as part of this leadership laboratory, there's 15 modules that will give you all kinds of content to engage in that conversation. It's a 2 to 4 hour a month process, and it replaces one of your regular leadership team meetings or staff meetings or however you organize things at your company. Now, the first thing you do for your strategic thinking conversation is you leave budgets and the current financials, the performance to plan for this year, outside the room. Why do I say that? Because way too often we start a strategic conversation with some sort of look at the financials. And we get the detailed line item financial out in front of us, probably the income statement. We start running down it, And about 3 lines or 4 lines down, an argument breaks out about the fact that we spent $600 too much for coffee in the last quarter. Folks, that is not a strategic thinking conversation. That's why you leave all that numerical stuff outside the room when you're going to engage your team about strategic thinking. Instead, you want to be talking about values and mission and vision for your organization. Do you understand the driving forces? How up are we on what's going on in our marketplace? Do we really understand our competitors? Are just a few of the things that you really want to engage in? Have you thought through your business model lately? Have you reimagined where you're going and what value you're actually delivering to your customers and why it is they buy from you? Those are strategic thinking conversations. Here at the Strategy IQ Leadership Laboratory, you'll have the opportunity to do a deep dive into the 15 modules, what we call action learning modules of Strategy IQ. So let's get started together. Let's get on a strategic thinking conversation journey and make something really creative happen. Let's release some of the fusion in your organization in the next year. Come on, we'll get started now. Thanks for being here.